Hello, fellow city builders and fellow academics. Welcome to episode 1 of my City Skylines II Beginner's Guide. I'm Academic Unwinds, and in this series we're building a realistic, efficient city from scratch, without going bankrupt, hopefully, and without overbuilding. Let's be honest, the early game in City Skylines is tough. I've started more cities than I can count, and the hardest part is always getting those first 1,000 citizens and ultimately paving the way of getting into the green. So in this particular tutorial, we're going to play on normal difficulty, as this will be, I think, a lot of fun. So in today's episode, we're going to walk step by step through a feasible clean start that balances demands, keeps the expenses under control, and sets you up for real success down the line that we're hopefully, if this performs well, gonna do as we move along. So yeah, let's get started. All right, part 1, when you first start playing, is actually just picking the map. So we're starting with the Sunshine Peninsula map. It's quite balanced, it's mostly flat, definitely in the beginning, and it has a reliable water source and close by, as you can already see in the picture. When you select a map, you want to make sure that your buildable area is high, as this is what tells you how big your cities can basically grow. Depending on your playstyle, you want to make sure your outside connections is what you have in mind. Here we have everything available, as well as electricity, which is nice. And we have quite a nice balanced natural resource occurrence on this map. There's also no snow, and it seems to be mostly sunny, so less rain on this map, which also means that traffic accidents will be more or less rare. So with that map in mind, I think we're just gonna get started. Nothing flashy, just a strong foundation. All right, let me click select map. And here we first need to give our city a name. We're gonna call it First Light. The theme is European. It doesn't ultimately matter. You can always switch this around, but let's go with a European city and the game normal mode like we said. We're playing with natural disasters on, and all of the other options are unselected, as well as the tutorials. So let's go. So when you first install the game, it might actually be relatively quickly to load. The more mods you install, the longer it takes. As soon as we load into the game, we are going to pause it. Every second that costs money is money that you cannot spend later on. So pausing, definitely helpful. So first step, we're gonna start looking into our terrain. So in order to look into our terrain, you have the info views up here. So if we select this, we actually, you know what? Before we start with that, let's look into our overall topography. So I usually like to go into the roads map, click then put contour lines on. They didn't exist when the game came out. Kind of a weird choice, because topography is what makes your city interesting. Anyways, you see most of the starting area is flat. So that gives us a good area to just build and, grow our city out from there on. We do have our water source up here, so let's have a quick look into that is actually the water availability. Let's go into water, click the water pumping station, and that will show us the direction of which water flows, meaning it goes from the left to the right, which means we want to pump water more on the left and let the sewage out on the right. So obviously that our sewage pipe doesn't feed into our water supply. All right, what else do we need to look on? There are a couple of things that we want to check out. One is the wind direction. Let's actually do this over here. If you click on electricity and then click on wind turbine, it will actually show you in which direction the wind blows. So this goes from the bottom right to the top left. So what you want to do is make sure your industry is downwind of your residential area and not the other way around. If it's the other way around, your citizens will suffer and they will get sick. So in this case, the right-hand side will be great for us to place our city. The left-hand side will be great for us to place our industry. Speaking of industry, the next thing we want to check is resources. So we click on zones and then click on specialized industry. This will show you a couple of things. In the beginning, not everything is unlocked, but you do see livestock, grain, forestry. That is mostly based on the trees, as well as stone mining. That will also tell you where your mineral resources are. That will be the same for coal and for ore as soon as we unlock them. All right, what we have seen though, and it just disappeared, so let's go back in. What we have seen, this corner right here is actually excellent for farming. So we're gonna make sure we'll place our farm in there, or one of our farms in there, keeping our industry just separate from our residential area. And while this is a great piece of land to add additional farming, we're gonna focus it on the left. All right. And with that, I think we have kind of covered almost everything. The most important part is still missing. Our highway is coming in from this way and is already turning into a collector, or in an arterial. This basically is what the game gives us to start with, and that's actually not a bad thing. But we wanna build out from this. So the collector is relatively short, so I'm gonna just start expand it a little bit. Just out to here, I think that will be okay. And then we're going to start putting down our grid. So I say grid, but ultimately it is fine for you to start with a grid layout of a city. Roman cities also started with a grid layout, and then the city naturally grew out from there, and this is where you ended up with different grid zones overall. So we're gonna keep it simple. First of all, we're gonna make sure, let's have a quick look into our specialized industry again. We're gonna make sure that we will keep quite a bit of that industry, of that fertile land, open and available for our farming industry. So I'm gonna put a road down here, same as the collector. Our non-specialized industry can go up north, and our farming industry can go down south. Right, next thing, we wanna place our city. And this is actually, since I mentioned it before anyways, we're gonna build it based on Roman architecture. So when Romans built a city, they usually had a road that goes from east to west and from north to south, that crossed at some point, which ultimately made up the city center. And that's exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna start from this, and I'm gonna make sure keep a relatively large road here, so to allow us for future expansion. Now, what I would like to do is place this in the middle, and as you can see, it doesn't quite work. But if I turn off the snap to zoning length, you have all these different snapping tools. Once I turn this off, all of a sudden, I'm able to go into the center of this other collector. And all I'm gonna do is put out a little bit of a road here on which we can sort of build further down. So while usually I like to place these kind of things more manually, but there's nothing wrong with using the grid tool. What the grid tool does is it allows you to relatively quickly build your basic city layout. So we're gonna go over here, I'm gonna click left once, and for now I'm gonna turn the snap to zoning length back on, as this will help us in the long run. Let's see how far we can expand this. We're gonna go and we're making this 736 meters wide. We click again, and then we expand from over here. Now this you can still move around, which is fine. So just keep an eye on the top length part, as well as on the side. And we're just gonna go for 368. What were we? 736, that doesn't quite work. You know what? Let's go a little bit further back. Let's do the 736 and then the 368, which is half of that, and build our grid like this. When you use the grid tool, the nice thing about it is your grids will look beautiful. So we're gonna do the same up here. 368, 736, here we go. Put it back down. And now we are going to connect our road from here, right down the center to here. And we're actually just gonna expand it all the way out. Let's actually use the straight parking on this side. This gives us a 4-lane road or a 4-grid piece road, which we can later on very quickly expand. Also gonna do the same up here. Put this all the way down here and keep an eye on your angles. You want them to remain as a right angle because otherwise you will struggle later on. So here we go. We do want to subdivide this a little bit. You don't have to do this, but personally I prefer it this way, just to make the grid a little bit smaller and, you know, make the city center a little bit more walkable. So from road to road, let's actually measure this out here. We're at 184 meters, so we're trying to go for about 92. It doesn't quite work out, so we'll go for exactly in the middle, which was 88. We're gonna do this over here as well. Let's actually go from this side here, 88. And again, your grids don't need to be perfect, right? What matters much more as that for that is, well, that you kind of get your zoning right. With these stubs in, we can just quickly connect them all the way to the bottom, still a 90-degree angle. And look how beautiful it is. Our grid has not broken. This is the most annoying thing, for me at least, in City Skylines 2, that if you manually place road, your grid very quickly breaks up. In part, you might not be at a fully right angle, and that just destroys your zoning overall. All right, here we go. We can actually place this all the way down here. Again, zooming out, making sure we are at a right angle. And here we got sort of the basic layout for our residential area. We're gonna do basically the same over in our industrial area. So we're gonna go into the grid tool and I'm gonna put it in the corner right here, expand it out. Actually, it's expanded out all the way to where we have placed the road before. Now I'm gonna move it. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't need to be the same grid size as over there. So let's just place it like this. I think that will look quite nice. And here we can actually just turn this, although it is a right angle over here. We'll just connect this up like that. Just again, making a few more connections in here, which will ultimately help our industrial area be better connected. All right, with that, we have the basic road layout as well. I could fill up the rest of this entire area, but honestly, don't do it, right? It will just cause you harm in the long run. I'll still connect this up because I think it will look nice. All right, next part, we need to talk about utilities. First, we're gonna place water and sewage. All of your citizens and all of your industry building, they need water and sewage, and water is up here. So we need to kind of go from here all the way up here. If I do this directly, you see that this part here is actually super steep, and so is this part. So what you can do, you can go into your landscaping tools and use the slope terrain tool to actually mellow this out a lot. So the way this works is you click on your designated height. This is where you want to end up with, right click. And then where you start, this is where you left click and you keep holding it and then slowly moving it towards that height where you want it to be. Now, don't be afraid if it creates some kind of weird janky areas right here. This is what the soften terrain tool is for. Click on this. I'm going to reduce the size a little bit. And I'm just gonna smooth out the edges a little bit here so it doesn't look that ridiculous. All right, here we go. So now we've got this very smooth plateau over here, or path over here to get onto this plateau. Keep a right angle down there, 6%. That looks good. No jankiness in our road network, which is even better. And this will allow us to easily get to the water that is up here. So the nice thing with roads in City Skylines 2 compared to City Skylines 1 is the pipes are actually underneath the road, right where they belong. So we're gonna make good use of that. We're gonna place our water pumping station up here. And this is where we're gonna use another level terrain tool, or another terrain tool, the level terrain tool. Make sure it's a little bit smaller. With a right click, you select the height that you want to be. And with a left click, you're creating these levels. Well, that's why it's called level plateau. That will allow you to sort of flatten this out. We're going to do the same as before with our smooth terrain tool. We want to end up at our road. So we're going to right click there, start down here, and we're going to move around in a curve. I'm going to make this a bit more interesting by kind of having a double curve in here, which allows me to also present the complex curve tool, where you click first to connect it, click a second time, which will be the first bend, click a third time, which will be the third bend, and then ultimately you end up where you want to be. Creates very nice, very smooth pieces of road, which will build a very nice basis for your city to build on. All right, I'm going to expand the road a little bit here, which will then allow us to put our water pump right over there. And here we go. Looks great. So we've got water. Now we're going to do the same with sewage, just downstream, right? Like I said, water starts up here, it flows down there. So you don't want to build your sewage outlet too close to your water inlet. So we could place it up here and sort of mellow this out a little bit. We could also get closer to our water source, water area down here. So let's do what we did before. We're gonna level the terrain, create this little plateau, I guess it is a plateau. Plateau over here for our outlet, go into slope terrain, start up at the road, and then smoothly basically move up here. Next, we're going to connect this up with the road, follow these guidelines. We're still in the curved road tool, and just very nicely bend it in there, which I think looks great. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to place our sewage outlet right there. And this will actually allow the sewage to come out. One thing that I've recently noticed, there is a little door out the front. Don't know why it's out the front, but I guess they decided it's a good way to enter from the front rather than the back. Either way, we have kind of fixed this a bit more realism. All right, water and sewage is in. Next part that comes along is electricity. And electricity, we can actually utilize the outside electricity. And I think it makes sense to actually do this through these pylons. So the power lines, we are just gonna extend this over here in a right angle. Actually, let's do one more thing before. Gonna continue this road out a little bit. So we can actually place our transformer station, not offloading onto this main collector, but offloading onto this side road, place it down, and then we're just gonna go in and connect the back up, add a, you know what, let's do it the other way around so we can keep kind of a straight line close to it, connect this up, and this way our entire grid, wherever we have built a road, also has power supply. Water done, sewage done, power done, all the utilities done. So the essentials are in. Great. Now we can actually start with the zoning, and this is where the fun of City Skylines 2 starts. So before I start, down here, you see the residential commercial industry demand meter, or RCI. That will tell you what your city currently wants. It is a good practice to not fully empty these out, although in the beginning you will very much do so very, very quickly. Regardless, I'm gonna start pressing play, and as you see, it climbs up a little bit. So we are going to put down housing, and I'm gonna keep that zoning area close to our collectors, free for commercial buildings. Right behind it, I'm gonna kind of foreshadow this. There's medium density housing. We're going to place some row housing down here. And after the row housing, that's where we're going to start placing our regular residential buildings. Feel free to play around with the zoning size. You can also just put it all down and see how it grows in. That is ultimately up to you. But if you play around with it manually, I think you'll be a little bit happier overall with the way it is going to look like. We're going to do the same with our commercial part. Place it all over here along these lines. Commercial part in the beginning definitely is quite important. And again, just play with the depths. You will end up with different sized lots, which will give your city a lot of character. My recommendation is don't go too big with these. While it might seem very intuitive to just build like ginormous shopping districts right off the bat, are they that realistic in such a small little town? Honestly, don't think so. So again, be a bit careful with your zoning, just play around with it a little bit and, you know, put a little bit of thought in it. I think you will love it in the long run. So it will ultimately help. All right, with this, I see this one's not spawning in anymore. So I'm gonna go to our industry area, and instead of placing our industry zones, we're gonna go straight into our specialized industry part. So this will be actually very useful for us because the specialized industry is also the stuff that you can export and, you know, have your city make money with. So we're gonna continue that road out here and kind of just split up that part of our city, or split it into half. Let's have a quick look again into our specialized industry. Our fertile land is on this side, so we are planning on building both just our grain farm on this side. The livestock, actually, as far as I remember, doesn't actually need fertile land. So you don't really need to waste your fertile land on this. We're gonna put a little bit of thought into our connection right here. So it is gonna be a dirt road. It curves around, which I think looks very nice. And then we're placing our grain farm right over here, which will allow us to place the zoning area around it. It is very tempting to go maximum level around this with these zones for your specialized industry. You don't have to, right? You can either size it according to your current city needs, or, and this is where I see this city kind of going along a little bit, this is why the city started to develop. So we have a relatively large farming industry going on right here. Just gonna kind of map it around the road until we are with this. So this is quite a big piece of land, but I think it looks it looks actually very nice. I think so, at least. So, and then on the other side, we're gonna place our livestock, very similar to what we've done here. Put a little bit of a side road in there, and then go in here, place our livestock down, again, along this road. And we're gonna leave this little corner here open, and we're gonna stay a little bit further away from the roads. Also not gonna go all the way through here, kind of leaving the maximum amount of zoning available. Or honestly, no particular reason. Just put a little bit of variation in there. And again, you will thank yourself later on as your city grows, and ultimately your city will look so much nicer for it. All right, grain and farm livestock is in. Now both of these can actually benefit from some industrial areas. And this is where we can also expand this corner right here. For now, we do have more low residential demand, so let's zone in a little bit more. As you see, this is what I've zoned in completely automatically. And you know what? Just for simplicity's sake, we're gonna keep doing this. But again, I encourage you to do this more manually, as it will make your city look so much more interesting in the long run. But for now, for this tutorial especially, we kind of just want to move along. All right, so this is in. We are still bleeding money. So it's $1,800 that we're losing. One way to make money is through taxes, but you need to unlock that first milestone. We're very close. So let's go ahead actually and put down a little bit of industry zoning just over here. And again, you don't need to make them massive to begin with. The bigger you make them, the more likely it is to spawn with some chimneys. And sometimes it just looks a little bit ridiculous. All right. Oh, here we go. First milestone reached, tiny village. We get a little bit of money, we get a development point, and we get some expansion permits, which will allow us to buy more land off the map. We're also going to take a quick peek at the progression panel. This is everything we have unlocked. Loan limits, map tiles, like I said. We can now look at the city budget and taxation, and this will help us with balancing our budget. We also got medium density housing, row housing to be precise, and we got some vegetable farming, coal mining, so actually a lot of stuff going on. More importantly, and this is where your budget will tank, there will be healthcare demand and death care demand, as well as garbage demand or garbage management demand from your people. So with these unlocked, you want to build them relatively quickly. But before we do that, I want to make sure we actually put in this vegetable farm, as this will again help us to keep our city afloat with money. All right, expanding out this small road right here, we're actually gonna make a shortcut into here. Just need to make sure, had the zoning, snap to zoning turned off, so we're gonna turn it on, put this in here. And this again gives another entrance to these two farms. But we will also be able to now go in here, take the vegetable farm, place it actually on this side. And here, let's do a little bit of a variation. Still stick with the dirt road, but just go out a little bit, put almost like a roundabout in there. And this we will leave for our vegetable farm. Place it kind of in the center. Don't really need to, but it will look, well, regardless, it will look very nice. All right, vegetable farm, and this, let's assume, is just gonna be the son of whoever that grain farm belongs to. So, you know, create a little bit of a backstory. And yes, I am very well aware that this is not in a right angle. We can fix this, but again, feel free to also explore other angles. Again, it will make your city look so much nicer. All right, still losing some money, but we do have a lot more demand. And like I mentioned before, in particular, we have the medium density demand. So let's go ahead, take the medium density row housing. And with this, you don't need to worry too much. There are only one zoning block wide. So as long as you keep sort of the sides open, they will just spawn in like this. And again, you don't need to worry too much about them spawning crazily all over the place. We do need more low density housing as well. And I am going to fill up this entire corner here, making sure to leave enough space for our row housing, which will be around there, and then our medium density housing, which will go right behind our commercial district. So as this is zoning in, we do have demand for additional industry. So this is where we're also gonna expand this over here a little bit at least. So let's go ahead and just fill this in, and they can just spawn in. We're also gonna fill in the other side, and I'm facing them specifically away from this collector, as I think this makes a little bit more sense in terms of traffic management. So they won't actually load onto this collector, but onto this side road, which yeah, will help us in the long run. Let's actually put a couple of these, just 2 white buildings, make another 3x4, and this is not growing in anymore because we don't have demand. We do have more demand for our medium density housing, and this is, you kind of just jump back and forth a little bit with the zoning. As your demand rises, you just keep zoning in whatever the demand currently, well, demands, right? All right, here we go. All of the demand is down. And this is where you also see now our village is massively increasing while our budget is actually not too bad. So now we can focus on the things that we have unlocked in our first milestone. Like I mentioned before, we've unlocked healthcare, which is down here, healthcare and deaf care, as well as garbage. So let's focus on garbage for now. You want to build your landfill further away from your housing, as this will create ground pollution and ultimately it's just troublesome. So what we are going to do, and this is where we'll take our first mulligan, as City Planner Place likes to say, we're going to delete this road and actually use this corner right here to build our garbage facility facing this direction. Let's quickly turn the contours on. It is a little bit steep over here. So what we're going to do is soften our terrain. Actually, instead, let's go and kind of go down here, flatten it out, and then soften our terrain up here. Overall, this will do the trick for us. Now, there's still a little bit that goes up here. I'm not too worried about this. But now with the garbage built in, we need to expand the area that they are allowed to use for garbage. And we can be generous with this, but we also don't need to go all out with our garbage capabilities. So I'm going to stick a little bit away from the road. And we're just going to actually include this little mountain or this little hill part, as it will then kind of look like there's a bit more garbage accumulation going on over here. As your garbage comes in, this will actually fill up, and I do recommend you have a look at it later on. All right, garbage is in, so now we focus on healthcare. Healthcare, at first you need a small clinic. With this kind of layout, where you're like Roman layout, where you have a main road going from left to right, or from west to east, and then from north to south, they usually put these service buildings further out, which we don't really need to do. What will actually look nice, and surprise, surprise, it actually worked out. This was actually not planned, in all the honesty. There's enough of a gap for us to build our hospital, our small medical clinic, just into this little nook, facing it off onto Grove Street. And this is something that you want to consider as well. You don't want it to face your collectors. As soon as they face your collectors, you will offload onto the collectors, and that will create additional traffic. All right, so this is in. Now time to focus on our deaf care. So we're going to go back in here, look at our graveyard that we can place right now, cemetery. And we're going to place this actually right off this collector, right at the entrance to our little city. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And now deaf care is taken care of. Some of these buildings, and you might have seen that in the healthcare, they do have upgrades where you can actually select them and put them next to it. Some of them need extra space. I don't quite remember. This one actually does not have upgrades. So this is just something to keep in mind. Some buildings will have upgrades, others don't. And you can place them within a certain radius. So we could actually place them on the other side of this big road. But for now, this is more than enough capacity for our village to grow and thrive. All right, we're now losing still a ton of money, but we will not be able to solve it in this episode. We have created the initial building blocks to do so, but for now, we're just gonna focus more on our zoning. So we need more row housing, since we need more medium density houses. So we're gonna place them just over here on the other side, all the way through. And as soon as they grow in, I don't think I mentioned this. I always leave a gap on the side so I know which road they're facing. Once they have started to build it, you can fill in the rest and it will actually grow in appropriately. All right, here we go. Our density is kind of unlocked again, used up again, not unlocked again. Now we're gonna speed this up a little bit. And again, a couple of things that we need to watch, especially when it comes to the budget. So we are bleeding money, so we can look into our city economy. This is what we get in terms of taxes. This is what we get for service fees, for electricity and so on. And this is what we pay for service upkeeps. Now, obviously this is a humongous amount. And since we're importing electricity, this is what we pay for electricity. So you can take out loan on this screen. I usually try to avoid loans as much as possible. So let's go into taxation. At the moment, everyone is taxed 10%. You can increase this. This will make your citizens a little bit unhappier. And that's what you see on the bottom right here. So by having increased the taxes by 2%, I get a -2 mood modifier that you see the second from the top for high taxes. -2, actually okay. All right, next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go into services, and this is where we're gonna make some of our money back. We're gonna remove the budget for roads as far as we can, 50%. At the moment, that is fine. We're so small a village that will be okay. So gonna reduce our electricity budget, goes down to 1,500, although most of our electricity cost is coming from the import. We're also going to reduce our water and sewage. I'm not going to reduce it all the way. I'm just going to keep it at 70%, as this will be what our citizens need the most. Healthcare is where a ton of your money gets basically placed in, especially for small cities, very painful. So we're going to reduce it to 50%, same as the garbage management. We do have plenty of capacity here in terms of vehicles. So overall, that should be fine. Let's have another look at our money. We're only losing $2,500-ish dollars or cents per hour, whatever you want to call it, simoleons. So we need to still work on that. And this is where we're going to expand our city again. We now have a bit more commercial demand. And commercial demand, happy to place it. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Place it along here, and keep in mind this is another collector, so we're also gonna move into this corner right there and sort of build this out here. Commercial demand already gone, so let's keep building up our medium density homes or row housing, and those we can very quickly zone in over here, and they will fill up right away. This is gone again. Now we're moving on again to our low residential housing, and at the moment it seems very fractured, but as we are unlocking the bits and pieces from our zoning, it will actually look quite nice. You go from relatively low density to higher density to even higher density or higher looking density into your commercial area, which will ultimately also grow as well. All right, population steadily growing. Our money is slowly balancing out, so all in all, this is going really well. Milestone for us today is to reach 1,000 citizens down here. So we're gonna make sure we sped up. We're at small village now, and again, this money here is how you keep yourself afloat in the beginning. Development points, you could start looking into these, not quite necessary. And the expansion permits, I recommend only using them when you really need to. As the more you use, you will pay upkeep for these tiles, and they can wreck you. All right, let's have a quick look in the progression panel. We apparently unlocked the signature building, the Fleur de Thé, tea salon with a beautiful terrace welcoming. Bottom line is it's a signature building that would have positive effects on your citizens. My recommendation, make it more of a destination. It will look nice. People, or you will appreciate it later on when you look into your village. So don't just prop it down because it gives you the bonuses. We have now actually unlocked the medium density housing, the regular. maybe replace the Mediterranean heritage medium density housing. I have not tried this, but worth a shot. We also have unlocked textile fiber farming, so we can do that as well. And education will be the next thing that we need to focus on. Your people will want an elementary school at least, otherwise the happiness will go down. So it's just something to keep in mind. All right, I'm gonna close out of this, and we are gonna place, with the rising medium density demand, we're actually gonna place our Mediterranean medium density housing all through here, and just have a look what this is actually gonna look like. I accidentally dezoned this building, so we're gonna put it back in. Let's go back in here, and instead of these drawing an area to fill, you can actually just paint bucket it in, and this way you can get back to these areas that are a little bit weirdly shaped. All right, more industry demand. So I think it is time to utilize our newest industry, specialized industry, which is the textile farming, and we're just gonna place it back here. To make this a little bit more of a thing, we're gonna put a road right next to our farm over here, which kind of creates a new zoning area right down there. Connect this up to there, then again go into our dirt road or gravel road, and have a road just come out here. This one, we're kind of doing something similar, a little bit different, because I want to place a little roundabout at the end of it. Maybe a tree in the middle. Here we go. And this will still allow us to place our farming building down. So we're gonna place it right here, and this kind of lined up nicely with the road over here. And the next thing we need to do is just expand out our farming area. We're gonna connect this up. Actually, you know what? We leave that strip of power lines in there. Well, I think it will look nice, right? And again, you don't need to always maximize every little piece of space that you have. So let's say this is just property of the city, right? And here we go. We do have now a good amount of textile farming. I will actually expand this a bit more, because why not? So it kind of matches to this. Then we're gonna put in the right angles over here as well. And then we have another farm that came our way. All right, what does our budget look like? We are getting closer. We have a lot more commercial demand, and we are actually expanding our commercial demand down this side right here. Put in a little bit more zoning. And again, feel free to do this manually to change the sizes a little bit. Already out of commercial demand, that was quick. But a bit more industry demand, so now it's time to place a few more of our industry buildings over here. In order for this to not look ridiculously weird, right, you can always just scatter them around a little bit. So it seems like they're slowly filling in the space that was assigned to them, and even more important, it will create weirdly spaced lot sizes where your industry can kind of grow in. So overall, this will then, again, give your city a little bit more character as it grows, and as all of these industry parts will be differently sized. All right, here we go. There's actually a good amount of industry demand, which, very exciting to see. And we have used it up. Back to our medium density demand. So let's paint this in. We're very close to our milestone that we wanted to reach with the 1,000 citizens. And while we're not quite there, we're very close to actually balancing out our budget. So I think now we actually reached our milestone, 1,000 citizens. Only losing $500 a month, we will definitely be able to sort this out in the next episode. And with that, I am going to leave you like this. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you learned something that you didn't know before. And otherwise, I just want to say, happy building. And thank you all for watching. Hope to see you next time. Bye bye.